Hi, hello, how are you? I'm Alex. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, then it's nice to meet you. And if you're coming back, we're best friends now. You know how this goes. I hope you're doing well. And if not, I totally get it, you know? We all have those days and it's okay to not be okay. I hope tomorrow is better. Last week, I made a video on some tips and tricks on how to read more, because I know a lot of people, they have come to me and I've seen it just in general, like people are like, oh, this year I'm going to read more. I'm going to actually pick up a book and read it. And I've done that. So I just wanted to share some tips with you guys on what will encourage you to read more books. This week, I wanted to share some books that are easy to get into, that are short, that are good stories, and that will get you excited to pick up books. It's a very short stack, not intimidating, I promise. The longest book is like a children's book, and it's only like 450 pages. I am intimidated by long books. I am trying to read longer books because I know there are some great long books out there. I started this year with The Priory of the Orange Tree, which is like 850 pages, which is a lot for me. I just don't read long books. So I know they can be intimidating, so I didn't want to intimidate you guys with this stack, and I just wanted to suggest some books that are accessible and are a wide variety of genres, I think. The first book I have on this list is a beautiful copy. It's one of those Macmillan Collector's Library editions with the gold sprayed edges, and that is Greengage Summer by Rumer Godden. This is a great atmospheric summery book. It's about these British kids that go to the south of France, I believe it is, or maybe it's north of France. Anyway, they are on holiday in France and their mother falls ill and she's rushed to the hospital, so they're kind of left to their own devices in this gorgeous old luxury hotel. There's like 4 or 5 kids. And they become obsessed with these greengages when they find a greengage orchard, which is like, they're like these small plums, I think, as far as I understand. And there's also a mystery going on. It's very beautiful. The way that the scenery is described is very, very nice. The main character is this spunky little kid, and I think she's hilarious. And it's a very, very short little book. You could probably finish it in a few days. Not intimidating at all, and it's the kind of story that you consistently want to pick up and read. And that's great in my opinion, especially when you have a hard time picking up books, which I do very often. I think this could honestly pull you out of a reading slump if you were in one. So definitely check this out. The next book I have to recommend is another short book that you could read in a few hours, to be honest, and that's Wenjack by Boyden. This is a book that I recommended in my top 21 books of 2021, and it is excellent. There's a reason it was on that list. It is a Canadian Indigenous story about this young boy who is running away from a residential school and he's trying to find his way back home. But home is a lot further than he originally thought he was, and his journey is a hard one. And he's followed by these beings and these creatures of the forest that narrate his story and help him along the way, in a sense, and comfort him. And it's also illustrated by Kent Monkman, and it has these really sweet little illustrations of different creatures, and it goes along with the name of each chapter. And it's a very, very short tale. It's honestly a short story in my opinion. I think I finished it in less than an hour. The words on the page don't take very much space, so it's definitely a difficult book in the sense that the subject matter is hard, but it's a very short, sweet little read, and it's definitely worth the read. So I think you guys would enjoy it. Next up is one of my favorite books that I read as a kid, and I still love it to this day, and that is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. This is the biggest book in the pile, I promise. It looks thick, but honestly the paper in this copy is very thick, and like the words are quite small on the pages, so it looks a lot more intimidating than it actually is. And it's a book written for children, so it is not a complex story at all. I promise you that. It is the story of Anne, who was adopted by these siblings, Matthew and Marilla. But it turns out they meant to adopt a boy, and so they sent this girl, the adoption agency. But Anne ends up staying with them and living on PEI with them and going through all kinds of wonderful adventures, being whimsical and poetic along the way. It is beautifully written. It is such a fun tale, and Anne is such a lovely character. She's just so wild and funny and dreamy, and she comes up with these fantastic stories. And I cannot recommend this book enough. If you are also trying to get into classics and you feel intimidated by them, which I totally understand, read Anne of Green Gables. It's a children's classic. It's a great story, and it's very easy to read. I promise you that. Then I have a kind of thrillery type of book. I don't know why in my mind this is a thriller, but it just is. If you disagree with me, I'm sorry, but it makes sense in my brain. And that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celest. This is the first book by this author that I've read. I know she has another book or a couple books. This one is kind of a hit or miss for people, but I found it very easy to get into. It is a very fast-paced book. It is the kind of book that, like, it's a page turner for sure. And I think if you want to get into reading, page turners are a good place to start because they encourage you to read, they get you excited to pick up the book, and it's an interesting story. It tells the story of Mia and Pearl, who are mother and daughter, and they move to this very affluent neighborhood, and they rent a small little house owned by this very rich family. And Mia is the housekeeper kind of for this family, while Pearl becomes friends with all the children in the family, and all kinds of chaos ensues, and it's very interesting and very well written. I liked it very much, and it's short, so it's not intimidating at all. I finished it in 3 days, and I personally am a very slow reader. It's definitely a good book to read if you're trying to get into reading. Next is a book that I have recommended a couple of times on this channel, and that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a very short book. It pulled me right out of a reading slump because it's easy to read, it's short and sweet. He's originally a playwright, so the way he writes is very simple and very descriptive. And the book is actually separated into 4 separate stories, so it's very accessible in that sense that it's a simple story to read and you can just read it in parts, and it's very well written. It tells a story of a small cafe in Japan where if you follow a very specific set of rules, you can travel back in time as long as you get back before your coffee gets cold. And of course, this wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't recommend a book by Sally Rooney, and for this video I will recommend Normal People. This is a great short and sweet novel. It's her shortest book. It's the 2nd book, and it also comes with a TV show. So if you're not convinced by me telling you to read it, you can watch the TV show and that will convince you to read it. It tells the story of Marianne and Connell, who know each other from high school, and it follows their relationship as it progresses through university, and it follows both of their perspectives, and it's very good. It is very easy to get into. It is a quick read in my opinion, though it can be painful at parts, but it's definitely like a short and sweet story. It is the kind of story where you become so close and attached to the characters that it's kind of hard to put it down because you just want to know what happens next. These characters become people you feel like you know in real life, and it's just one of those books that you're just constantly encouraged to pick up and looking forward to reading, and I hold it close to my heart. And lastly is another quick little read, and the 3rd book in this list by a Canadian author, and that is The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. This is a very easy, accessible story. It's about these like 12 or 13-year-old kids, and they make a club with this one boy's uncle, and he tells all kinds of ghost stories within their little town. Really great, very well written, and it is definitely a page turner. It's narrated from the perspective of the main character as an adult, and he is a neurosurgeon, so he has an interesting perspective on like memory and grief and truth. And it's a page turner, so it's easy to pick up, it's easy to want to keep on reading. The people that I've recommended this to, and I've also recommended in my spooky reads video, so everyone that's read it has said that it's like they've finished it in like a couple of days. It's just that good, and it's very easy to read. So, and yeah, that's all for today in my small little video on easy books to get into, easy books to read. So if you're trying to get into reading, these are a good place to start. They're all short, they're all like written in a way that's quite accessible in my opinion. So yeah, they're just really good starting points, I think. Like this video if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.